What if our loved ones who passed are still trying to reach us? Would you be still enough to hear them? What if every sunbeam, every breeze, every familiar melody was a message from the other side? Would your heart be open enough to feel it? And if death doesn't sever the bond, but simply changes how someone is present with us, then why can't I hear them anymore? My name is Anna. I'm a music teacher. I used to believe music was a bridge to the divine, that one beautiful song could silence war, soften hate, soothe despair. I believed that, until the night my music was interrupted by something no one ever expects, a massacre. And I was the only one who survived. My father, my mother, my little sister, they're gone. And the house that once echoed with piano keys, laughter, and my mother's lullabies in the winter is now just an empty shell. I wasn't there when it happened. I couldn't hold them one last time. I couldn't call their names in that final moment. I couldn't do anything except survive. And for years after, I carried only one question: why am I still here? Every morning I opened my eyes felt like punishment. Every night I lay down was another round of memories tearing at my soul. I still taught music. I still stood before my students. I still placed sheet music on the stand. But I couldn't hear a thing. No piano. No feeling. Nothing. Music, the thing that once gave me life, had become the very thing that suffocated me. It turned into a nightmare. I never told anyone my story, because who could understand the pain of a silence this deep? Who could grasp what it means to survive when your heart was buried with the people you loved? I told myself I was okay. I kept working. I smiled when I was supposed to. I nodded when it was expected. But inside, I had died a long time ago. I wasn't living. I was merely existing. I no longer prayed, no longer searched, and certainly no longer believed in comforting notions like, our loved ones are still with us, somewhere beyond what we can see. Because if they truly were, then why couldn't I hear anything? Not a dream, not a sign, not a whisper, just silence. But there was something strange, a question that kept looping in my mind like an unfinished song. If death isn't the end, then what is it? I didn't have an answer. Not until the day I stood at the edge of life and death myself. And for the first time in years, I heard a familiar voice singing. Have you ever heard a song in complete silence? Have you ever felt an invisible touch when you were convinced you were utterly alone? In the next part, I'll take you to that exact moment when I left my body, and the first thing I heard wasn't the silence of a stopped heart, but a message from a place I thought I'd lost forever. Don't look away from this story, because what comes next might just answer the question you've always carried in your heart. Are the ones we've lost truly still with us? I don't think I wanted to die, but I no longer wanted to live either. The difference was only a single breath. That day, like every other, I came home, opened the door, set my bag down on the chair, and looked around the tiny apartment I'd chosen to live in alone for the past 4 years. The photo of my family from when I was 17 still sat on the shelf. I'd thought about throwing it away so many times, but I never could. I held on to it, like I was holding on to something I could never return to, never touch, never fully forgive. That night, I took a new sleeping pill my doctor said would help me rest easier, fewer nightmares. But I didn't wake up in the morning. Or at least my body didn't. I don't remember what it felt like when my heart stopped. I just remember one brief moment, so brief I still question whether it was real or just my imagination. A bright ceiling light. Then everything faded. And then nothing. No light. No darkness. No sound. No images. But strangely, I wasn't afraid. I only felt light. So light I thought I'd become a breath. And then suddenly I heard something. It wasn't loud, it wasn't clear, but it was so familiar that if my heart had still been beating, it would have shattered. It was my mother's voice. Not calling my name, but singing her lullaby. The same song she used to hum when I was burning up with fever as a child. That melody had carried me through countless nightmares. And now it returned like a thread pulling my soul towards something. I couldn't see her, but I knew she was there. I felt it like a gentle touch on my shoulder, only it wasn't physical. It was energy. I heard the wind, though there was none. I sensed light, though I was surrounded by nothing. I didn't know where I was. It wasn't the hospital. It wasn't a dream. But it wasn't the end either. I was floating. Not in any direction, just floating. I didn't ask questions. I didn't need to. Every answer felt like it had always been there, just waiting for me to be still enough to hear. I thought of my father. I thought of my sister. I thought of all the things I never got to say. And with every thought of them, a soft wave of something passed through me. Not sadness. Not joy. Just one thing, love. But not the kind of love you read about in books. No words. No pictures. Just the undeniable feeling that I had never truly been left behind. That I was being held, even though the hand was no longer here. And in that moment, something strange happened. I no longer felt bitterness. I no longer blamed anyone. The question, why did I survive, simply vanished. Everything began to dissolve like I was no longer a person thinking, but a soul remembering. Remembering life. Remembering beauty. Remembering every glance, every laugh, every embrace I had forgotten for far too long. And then, within that vast space, a voice emerged. Not male. Not female. Not spoken out loud, yet it echoed clearly in my heart. It said, "There's still something you must do." I didn't understand. What? For whom? And why? But I knew whatever came next, I was about to be shown. I was about to be led to the answer. Do you believe that in the middle of death, there might be an invitation to live again? In the next part, I'll tell you where I was taken, who I saw again, and why I no longer believe our loved ones are ever truly gone. What I witnessed after that changed the way I see the afterlife forever. I don't know how long I drifted, or if time even existed in that place, because in that realm, nothing was measured in seconds or minutes, only in feeling. And it was feeling that led me into a realm of light. Not a blinding light, but a soft one like the glow of sunset mixed with memories of childhood. I wasn't walking, and I wasn't flying. I was simply carried there, as effortlessly as a thought. I had never felt such peace, and yet, I had never trembled like that before. I wasn't afraid of the darkness. I was afraid of the light, because I sensed it might show me everything I had been running from for years. And then I saw them. They didn't walk in. They didn't arrive. They were just there, as if they had always been there, waiting for me to be still enough to notice. My father, my mother, my little sister. They weren't frozen in the final images. I held the ones filled with pain and tragedy. They were younger, brighter, as if woven from light. But still them. There was no need to touch, yet I could feel my mother's embrace. My father's steady hand on my shoulder, just like he did before I performed in recitals. My sister's mischievous smile, the one that always melted my sadness. I don't know if there are tears in that realm, but if there are, I'm certain I cried. I couldn't speak. Neither could they. But somehow we understood one another completely. No words. No sound. Just presence. I felt my father place his hand on my shoulder again. My mother gave the softest nod, as if to say, "I know you've been so tired." My sister smiled, and that smile shattered every wall I had built inside me. I wanted to stay. I didn't want to go back. But then I heard something not from them, but from deep within my soul. "We've always been here. You just stopped hearing us." I froze. I understood. All these years, I had shut down every channel of connection. I had closed my ears to the subtle messages from the unseen world. I let pain blind me. I let silence bury their whispers. They never left. They simply changed how they showed up in the light, in the dreams, in a melody drifting on the street, in the gentle warmth that brushes your skin when you think of them. But I had stopped believing. I had been living as if death were the end. As if love were buried with the ones we lost. As if I were merely a victim of a harsh life, instead of someone who had been loved most deeply, beyond anything the mind can understand. My mother reached out and touched me gently. I don't know if it was real or imagined, but my heart ached, and then slowly began to warm. She didn't speak, but I heard her clearly within my soul. "You were chosen to continue living." I bowed my head, wanting to say I was sorry. But before I could open my mouth, my little sister gently placed her finger to her lips, as if to say, "You don't need words." Because in that place, there was no blame, no resentment, only unconditional, pure love. I had believed I'd been left behind. But it turns out, they had always been here. It turns out, I had never been alone. What had caused me so much pain all these years wasn't their absence. It was the fact that I had forgotten how to feel them. But that reunion, as beautiful as it was only the beginning. In the next part, I'll share what happened when I was taken to another place, a place where I was shown my own life from a completely different perspective. And there, I realized that none of us truly understands how we've lived, until we see it through the eyes of the soul. I thought that reunion was the destination, the reward after all the loss, the place I would finally get to stay. But I was wrong. Just as the warmth of their presence had barely begun to fade, I was gently pulled away, not by my feet, not by my will, but as if my soul was being drawn toward a massive mirror. Except this mirror didn't reflect my face. It reflected my life. I didn't see landscapes or events the way I remembered them. I saw moments, feelings, encounters, each memory unfolding not from my perspective, but from theirs. I saw myself standing in my classroom, quietly observing my students as they sang. One little girl was smiling at me, her eyes full of hope. But I never looked back. I saw the night I declined an old friend's dinner invitation. That friend had tried so hard to pull me out of my isolation, but I responded only with a cold shake of my head. I saw how many times my mother had appeared in my dreams, gentle, waiting, but I had dismissed it as imagination. I saw the moment my father tried to speak to me through an unexpected gust of wind at his gravesite. I simply pulled my coat tighter, unwilling to feel anything. I saw all the signs they had sent the song that came on the radio at the exact moment I was about to give up, the strange light in my room as I cried, the butterfly that landed on my hand on my mother's Memorial Day. All of them had been messages, gentle touches from the other side, and I had ignored them. I had closed every door. I had locked my soul in the prison of pain, thinking it was the only way to stay faithful to their memory. I don't know if I cried, but I felt my soul crack open. Not from regret, from something even deeper. I realized I hadn't truly lived since the day they died. I had only existed. I hadn't forgiven. Not others. Not myself. I had let grief, anger, and pain steer every decision. And I believed that made me strong. I thought shutting down was a form of protection. I thought avoiding music was a way to stop remembering. But now I could see the damage I had done to others, how I had hurt people simply because I was too consumed by my sorrow. Then, I heard that voice again. The nameless one. Deeper this time, like background music behind a scene in a film. Forgiveness isn't about accepting what happened. It's about freeing yourself from living inside it forever. And I saw myself alone in my apartment, staring at that family photo I hadn't dared to touch. I saw myself like a song left unfinished, not because it had run out of notes, but because the composer was too afraid to keep writing. And I understood. I couldn't stay here. I still had something to do. Something my parents and sister had been whispering gently to me all along, something I had never been still enough to hear. They didn't need me to suffer for them. They needed me to live for them, to open my heart again, to forgive, to feel, to connect, and to finish the melody we had started together. That was the moment I knew I couldn't hide anymore. In the next part, I'll share with you the journey of returning to this world and why, after dying once, every small detail of life suddenly felt sacred, like a miracle. A kind of awakening. Not with the eyes, but with the heart. I don't remember the exact moment I woke up. I only remember the cold seeping into my fingers, the pale white light on the hospital ceiling, and the steady rhythm of the heart monitor beside me. Everything around me felt old and familiar, but I was no longer the same. I had come back, not with a new body, but with a soul stitched back together from the torn pieces of my past. Something felt different. I looked at the nurse and smiled, and for the first time, I truly saw her. Not just her face or her uniform, but her energy, a gentle, compassionate presence. It was as if my soul now knew how to listen to the quiet vibrations all around me. When I stepped out of the hospital, the morning light didn't blind me. It draped softly like silk. A breeze brushed my face, carrying the faint scent of jasmine, and I realized, for the first time in years, I was fully present. Not running, not hiding, not wearing the tired mask of a grown-up who knows how to endure. I returned to my classroom after 2 weeks. The children were surprised to see me, some were visibly delighted. But not because I had come back. They could feel it too. I wasn't the same. I didn't follow a lesson plan. I didn't teach vocal technique. I simply said, "Today we're not learning music. We're listening to ourselves." And then I began to play a nameless melody that poured out of me like a flood breaking through a dam. Each keystroke carried a memory, a word left unsaid, a love that had never truly gone. And strangely, the children didn't need to understand the story behind the music. They could feel it. I saw tears welling in their eyes, small hands instinctively touching their hearts. One little boy whispered, "This song makes me think of my grandpa." I smiled. No explanation was needed, because music never needs permission to reach the heart. I began to share my story not as a lecture, but as a whisper, soft as breath. I spoke of the silence that had lived in me for so long. I told them how those we've lost still try to speak to us in the form of an old melody, a dream in the middle of the night, a sudden shimmer of light slipping through the curtains. I didn't tell my story so they would believe me. I told it so that anyone quietly suffering might understand. You are not alone. You were never alone. They are still here. It's just that you stopped believing. and that belief is the doorway through which they return. I began teaching music again, but I no longer just taught melody. I taught my students how to listen to life, to their emotions, to the silence between two notes. Because in that silence, the soul speaks. But there's still one more thing I must do. It's not just about living on. It's about passing on what I've seen, what I've heard, what I now know after standing on the threshold between life and death. In the final part, I'll tell you how to recognize signs from those who've passed and why music, more than words, is the eternal bridge between two worlds. I began each class with a moment of silence. Not to pray, not to set the mood, but to listen, to hear what melody was stirring inside me that day, to sense whether the room itself was carrying a whisper from someone unseen. And strangely enough, the quieter I became, the more I heard. Things I once dismissed as random now felt like notes waiting to be played. One day, a student asked me, "Miss, how do you know if someone you love who passed away is still with you?" I looked at him, but didn't answer right away. I played a short melody that had never been written. Then I said, "You'll know. Not with your eyes, not with your ears, but with a feeling. They may no longer be people, but they're still loved. And love doesn't disappear." The more I shared my story, the more people came forward with their own. Someone saw their mother in a dream. Another smelled their grandmother's perfume on the anniversary of her passing. One heard 3 knocks at the door always on the same day, year after year. I no longer believe those are coincidences. I believe they are messages. I believe our loved ones are still trying to speak, but we've become too busy, too wounded, too unbelieving to hear. So I chose music as the bridge. I hosted a small concert. No tickets. No advertising. I called it Music from Those Who Still Love Us. That night, I didn't talk about how I died. I didn't speak of light, of souls, or the other side. I just played. Each piece was a memory, a soul, a gentle touch from beyond. And I watched people cry not because of words, but because something wordless had reached them. That's when I understood. Music is the final language when all others fail. It reaches where words cannot. Just like love, formless, limitless, needing no proof. Only presence. Only feeling. I still keep the family photo on the shelf. But now, when I look at it, my heart doesn't clench the way it used to. I hear my father's voice telling me to keep going. I hear my mother's laugh. I hear my sister whisper the same words she always used to say. "It's okay, don't be afraid anymore." I no longer wait for them to appear in dreams. I know they're already here every day. In the morning light. In the birdsong that greets me when I wake. In the quiet peace that finds me when I'm most tired. They're not far away. I've just opened my heart. And you can too. Love doesn't disappear. It simply changes form. Like music, when the melody ends, the echo remains. I used to think sharing near-death experiences was just a way to spark curiosity. But the more I told my story, the more I listened to others, the more I understood. Every person carries a quiet emptiness inside them. And each emptiness is waiting to be filled by something science can't name. Some call it soul. Some call it God. Some call it energy. For me, it's the music of memory. One afternoon, after speaking at an art school, a man in his 60s came up to me, eyes red from holding back tears. He said, "My son died in an accident when he was 19. I haven't listened to music since. But when you played Return to Light, I felt him standing behind me. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. I knew he was smiling. We didn't say anything more. He simply placed his hand on my shoulder, and I felt an entire lifetime being healed through that one quiet touch. I started receiving handwritten letters, emails, and messages from all over. Some wrote just a single line. I listened to the lullaby my mother used to sing, and I knew she's still here. Others sent videos of their 3-year-old daughter playing a melody no one ever taught her. One person shared a recording of birds singing at the exact time their father passed every single day, without fail. All of them were whispers. All of them were nameless songs rising out of silence. I don't dare call myself special. I'm just someone who died once, and when I came back, I knew I couldn't live the same way again. So I chose to tell, to play, to touch people's memories with the music of my soul. No proof needed. No explanation. Just a heart open enough to feel. And if you're still reading this, I believe you too carry an untold story. An unwritten song. A presence you once felt and quickly dismissed. Don't let them show up. Let that love live on through you. Because when a soul is truly heard, it will begin to sing again. And you'll realize what you thought was lost has only been waiting for you to believe one more time. If you've ever felt the presence of someone who has passed, share your story. If you've ever cried listening to a song and didn't know why, tell us. Maybe they're using you to say something that still needs to be said. And if you've lived in silence for too long, maybe it's time to listen again. Because that voice inside might not just be your own. It could be the voice of a soul that never truly left.